Hi, and welcome to another episode of Bespoke Architects Daily Pinup. I'm Nicole Walters, Director of Bespoke Architects, and I'm about to show you what inspiring architectural images made our Pinterest boards today. There was a lot around amazing storage, so let's get straight into it. The first image in the top left, where we always start on our pinup, is this particular image. I just really loved the way the shapes and the cantilevers were working on this 3-level dwelling. You can see it's got a basement car park here going down under these solid concrete walls, and then we can see these triangular shapes sort of sitting on top of each other at funny angles and creating these beautiful cantilevers out, making a really interesting street facade. So that's why that one is on the board. And then we launch into a little project. It was a townhouse development, or what I would call a townhouse development, with 2 sets of apartments, one of which had the most extraordinary bookcase, which is here. It goes floor to ceiling, and it's acting as the balustrade to the stair behind. You can see the stair in this central image here and how that works. On the lower level, obviously it's solid, and then we get up to that living room level, and it's this open bookwork, shelving situation that they're using to store books. What I think I like most about it is the fact that the shelves themselves protrude beyond the verticals. So that's adding a little bit of interest, and you've got that break in the shelf where the vertical is recessed back. So visually, I liked that. I also liked the fact that we can sort of see the stair riser coming through that bookcase. It sort of breaks it up, and then we've got some consistent shelving around that. So I really liked that as a solution to a staircase, and as a wall. Obviously, as a book lover, you're always looking for great ways to incorporate book storage into your dwelling. So that's it, sort of from a variety of angles. And then we can see how it appears from the dining room, looking back down towards the street. And then at the rear of this dwelling is this courtyard. It's that same long table that links those 2 images together. And you can just see this enormous steel pivot door leading out to this very minimalist courtyard at the back. And that's why, but you can see the continuity of the joinery material from that bookcase through as well. So I just really liked that as a very minimalist courtyard, and of course, the door as well is beautiful. So that's why that image made the board. Another one that caught my eye was this workshop. It was the curve form and the skillion, the really fine skillion shaped roof that sort of hovers above all those cylinders. I just thought that was a really beautiful curved form, and that's why that is on the board. Another project that caught my eye was this VC house. I really liked the sort of bamboo screening effect over the alfresco area. So we can see it here, and the integration of the alfresco with the open plan living, dining, kitchen. Growing up, I had an aunt who had a house where she had one indoor kitchen and lounge room, and she replicated those spaces out on a big, beautiful deck. And it was just really lovely to sort of have those 2 options, indoor, outdoor. In this scenario, we can see it's actually got some sliding doors. We can see the tracks there in between the internal and external floor thresholds, and then obviously the columns are doing all the work to hold that roof up. But I really like that as a concept. If you've got the space to sort of replicate your indoor, literally replicate it on the other side of the wall as an outdoor space. And then up in front of what we can assume are some bedrooms. Beyond that is just a swinging seat hanging from one of those beams. So that was worth putting up, I felt. And then internally to that, it's got this beautiful courtyard, and they had a fire pit, obviously far enough away from all their flammable building materials, dead center in amongst some sand. And then the way that integrated that wood storage into that external cladding, I quite liked. So again, it's creating different external spaces for a building. So we've got these really public alfresco spaces, the sort of more private bedroom space with the hanging stair, and then the even more cozy sort of keep you out of the weather fire pit area. So I really liked that. And this is a view of their kitchen from that project. So we can see the fire pit chairs on this side of the door, and we can assume this side is that very public alfresco area with the bamboo screening. But what I really liked about this was the integration of that fireplace into this sort of concrete structure. So again, we've got a wood burning fireplace on the inside. It's a firebox type with a door, and they've elevated that up off the floor and put it inside a concrete structure and then replicated that concrete structure along that wall. So I found that really lovely. Another house that caught my eye was the sun rain room. Just a really interesting terrace house. This is it, the external image down the bottom here to the right that caught my eye. Actually, it's the one next to it with this beautiful curved roof structure. And then we've got this roof garden on top, and then we can see the rain room here with this sort of lower floor and then the water feature. So some really interesting external landscaping. We go inside on that project, and they did some beautiful, more curved walls in the bedroom, sort of making that feel really, really cozy, and some interesting lighting around that bed and up on the wall there. Some really interesting joinery in this project as well. So this is like their dining room, and they've added in these sort of more contemporary style but very dumbed down joinery pieces, as in they're just plain white with routed handles, and then you're expressing the structure of those. They're using mirrors in the overheads to help project light, and then they've got some uplighting above those overheads as well as above that mirror, really lighting up that traditional cornice, which I like. Their kitchen was really interesting. It has these spice racks all exposed. It's a very narrow sort of galley style kitchen. Again, we can see a mirror above a splashback above the cooker here, sort of bouncing light around. A very functional galley style kitchen. And here's a front on shot of one of those very well organized spice racks. Makes any good chef enviable of that sort of visibility in the kitchen. So this is really a work kitchen. It's not, you know, a lot of times people come and they want that real show kitchen where all this sort of stuff is concealed from the public. And then you've got this version of a kitchen where everything is really well organized and looks beautiful and is put on display. So that's why that is on the board as a bit of inspiration. Again, their book storage, this is like a reading room that they've created, you know, which really appeals to me and would certainly appeal to my partner, given the size of our joint book collection. But again, really liking the way these bookcases have been integrated into the walls. We can see some solid storage at the bottom, and then just open shelving cantilevering out from the wall beyond. And then that just really thin shadow line up to that ceiling, which feels like it's been dropped in that room, as opposed to the other rooms that have the really decorative cornice. And then their fireplace, this is really interesting, sort of a same project. They've totally mixed up their materials in this space. It's sort of the more traditional fire hearth, and then they've lined the walls with a grained timber, which is sort of different to every other room where they've gone white plaster. And then they've put in the middle of this really old fireplace a wood burning type fire with a closed door, and we can see the little hearth elements there. So a really interesting way to use an old fireplace. It did get me thinking about the 4 that I have left in my house and whether I could integrate something like that, which is sort of a clean installation, which doesn't necessarily mean that you have to recreate the traditional. You can sort of do sort of contemporary within. I mean, they've even lit that really interestingly. So inspiring for me, and that's why it's made the board today. Got my head thinking about my own projects. And then moving down, I really just like the external of this house, the integration of that screen sort of for the upper level privacy. We can see the house next door, so we do know we're in sort of an urban setting. And then we can see that they've sort of left it open for the lower level, but then left it open again for that highlight level. So a good amount of natural light coming in the end of that. And again, we're talking about a 2-story form and how you break that up so it's not such a big wall looking at you. And I feel like this has achieved that very, very well. I included this little kitchen as some inspiration around a kitchen sink idea. It's very heavy concrete in this dwelling, but I really liked both the design of that tap and the way that that sink sort of functions in that space. Another couple of images from that same project. This is a more setback view of that kitchen. So we can see the steps there coming down, and the kitchen sink there with the range above it, which is interesting. And then another portion of that room, one room further down, and we can sort of see it's like a lounging space. And they've just created these really interesting levels within the concrete floor to sort of sit. There's some book storage there as well. So I found that project really interesting in that regard. This handmade furniture caught my eye yesterday. I just love the look of the material palette on this velour seat at the back. It's got some steel and what looks like concrete. Just a really beautiful piece of furniture, I felt, so that's why that made the board. And then we're starting to see, obviously, some responses to the COVID-19 situation and how design can help facilitate the new normal. And that's where this sort of ad for plexiglass caught my eye, and you can see here they're thinking about how we can do dining and create that social distancing there. So some really interesting solutions coming out of the design market to deal with this situation, and it's always sort of inspiring and encouraging to see ways forward, I guess. So I leave you with that. Finally, another image of the Bespoke Derbyshire house number 4. This is a view of the courtyard. We're looking back towards the open plan kitchen, dining, living that we've spoken about previously, and beyond that is the wetlands. And you can just see we've created levels again in this courtyard space, and the different cladding materials that were used on this project that we've also talked about before, and then that very important horizontal line that ties in all the window heads all the way around the project. So thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Bespoke Architects Daily Pinup. Until tomorrow, take care. Thanks. Bye.